Here we go.
What's the what?
It's time.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Emily.
And this is a Trial by Podcast. Sweet. Okay, we're back. Better than ever.
Today's the day.
Today's the day.
The tank is clean. The sun is shining.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful out, and we are in the basement. We have beautiful, cute little Molly here again today, which is Emily's dog. So if you hear panting,
She's
it's
breathing
not
up a storm. It's hot out.
Yeah, it's not us panting. Okay, just know that for sure. Okay, so today I am going to tell you about the life and death of Mata Hari. Have you ever heard?
I feel like I've heard of it, but I don't have any idea what it's about.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief little intro. So Mata Hari was often hailed as the original femme fatale. She captivated Parisian audiences as an exotic dancer in the early 1900s, drawing inspiration from Eastern cultures for her mesmerizing performances. Beyond the spotlight, Mata Hari's life was shrouded with mystery and intrigue. She mingled with the elite of various European nations, casting her as a significant figure in the geopolitical landscape. Now, consequently, France recruited her as a spy during World War I, but when she was later accused of divulging French intelligence to Germany, Mata Hari was executed by firing squad.
Oh, shit.
So we're asking the question now, was she really a traitor, or was she merely a woman trying to play both sides for financial gain? Mata Hari was actually born Margarita Gertruda Zell.
What a name.
Yeah. Yes. And
beautiful name. But
that's the last. That's the first and last time I'm going to say the full thing out loud.
What's her initials?
MGZ.
MGZ. All right.
Or we can stick with. I think it's Margarita, like with a t. Margarita.
Margarita.
But I'm going to say Margarita.
I like margaritas too.
Because I kind of want one right now.
Yeah, same.
So, Margarita Zell was born on August 7th, 1876 in Leeuwarden, Netherlands, and she was the oldest of 4 children. Now, thanks to her father's investments in the oil industry, he was able to provide her and her 3 younger brothers with a pretty lavish childhood at first. All 4 children were enrolled in exclusive and expensive private schools, and as the only daughter of the 4 children, Margarita seemed to be spoiled by her father. When she was just 6 years old, she was the envy of the other children in town after her father gifted her a goat-drawn carriage to travel in.
Fun. Ooh, what a present. It's like that's like your sweet 16th birthday.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. My dad never got me a goat-drawn carriage.
I didn't even get a car.
Asshole. So she was also envied by the other schoolgirls because her dad would buy her these like really expensive and flashy dresses all the time. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, the gratuitous lifestyle of the Zell family came crashing down in 1889 when Margarita's father went bankrupt due to some misguided assumptions about the stock market. So the family was forced to sell off most of their belongings and relocate to a struggling part of town. Now, just 2 years after, the unfortunate financial situation happened, Margarita's mother actually passed away as well. This devastated the 15-year-old, despite the fact that she was actually more of like a daddy's girl. But you
got her a goat-drawn carriage.
Yeah,
I would too.
Yeah. But she was devastated by the death of her mother. And after her mom passed away, Margarita's father actually just distributed the kids amongst different relatives. And she was actually sent to live with her godfather, Mr. Visser. So even though she was only 15 years old at the time, Margarita had grown to be 5 foot 10 inches tall, which was taller than the average Dutch man at the time. So Visser, who considered her height to be a major disadvantage in her pursuit of finding a husband one day, encouraged Margarita to become a career woman and enrolled her in a school that was designed to train women to become kindergarten teachers.
I mean, fun, but like, she can't help that she was tall.
Yeah.
Like, it's not her fault.
But it's kind of cool. She gets to be like a
Yeah, she
career
gets to go
woman.
to school, yeah.
Yeah. Now, sadly, when it was discovered that the school's headmaster, Wybrandis Hanstra, had taken a liking to Margarita and pursued a sexual relationship with the teenager, she was kicked out of the school.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well.
so it didn't last long. The fun didn't last
Well.
long. Now, her godfather sent her away to live with her uncle, who's known as Mr. Taconis. And even though she was kicked out and sent away from her home and all of that, the headmaster was allowed to stay in his position in the school. Even though he was
'Cause
having
he's a man and she's a woman.
Yeah. She's not even a
course.
woman. She's a girl. She was 15. It's crazy. And it makes you wonder how that scenario impacted a lot of stuff she does later on. So, while staying with her uncle in 1895, Margarita came across a personal ad in the paper advertising that 38-year-old officer Rudolph John McLeod was looking for a wife while he was home on leave.
I'm looking for a wife in finance with a just done
6'5",
5'10".
5'10", brown eyes. I love it. Now, apparently the ad was actually placed as a joke by one of McLeod's friends, but he must have been excited when he received a response from 18-year-old Margarita because the two were married in July of that same year, despite their 20-year age gap.
Oh, they wasted no time.
Now, at the time that they wed, McLeod had spent over 16 years stationed in the Dutch East Indies, which is modern-day Indonesia. And it was like a Dutch colony. It was under Dutch rule at the time.
Okay.
So after the wedding, Margarita joined McLeod in the Dutch Indies, and much of their married life was spent on the island of Java, which was isolated from the comfort and familiarity of the Netherlands that Margarita was used to. So this isolation partnered with tight finances, the couple's age gap, and the fact that McLeod was known for being an abusive alcoholic asshole who kept a concubine of household staff to cheat on his wife with.
Oof.
Made the marriage a volatile one. At the time, Margarita had wrote home to a family friend saying, quote, "My husband won't get me any dresses because he's afraid that I will be too beautiful. It's intolerable. Meanwhile, the young lieutenants pursue me and are in love with me. It is difficult for me to behave in a way which will give my husband no cause for reproaches." End quote.
Okay.
Now, the pair did end up having 2 children together despite their shitty marriage, basically. And Norman John McLeod is the son, and then the daughter is Louise Jean McLeod. However, it wasn't enough to keep the family happily together. Not too long after the birth of Louise, McLeod had to leave Java to work on Sumatra. He left the family behind on Java, but would occasionally call upon Margarita to fulfill the wifely duties of a commander's wife, which I know what you're thinking. It was actually to throw some like banging parties. That was
okay.
her as a commander's wife. Just as a wife, I'm sure she had all the duties that he was asking for. But hosting lavish parties was a task that Margarita relished in. In The Eye of the Dawn, Erika Ostrovsky wrote that she, quote, "could reign like a queen, dressed in the latest fashions imported from Amsterdam, a paragon of beauty and elegance. She conversed with visitors in their native language, whether it was Dutch, German, English, or French, gave instructions to the servants in Malay, played the piano most musically, and danced with unusual grace," end quote. Now, it sounds like all fun and games at these parties, and
Literally what it sounds like.
and
is all
maybe
fun
it's
and
better
games.
now that they're separated, but things just continue to go downhill. And in 1899, both children became extremely ill, though it's not clear what from. Some people say that they were actually born with syphilis, which they contracted from their mother during birth. But McLeod and Margarita believed that they were actually poisoned by scorned employees of the family, but no one really knows for sure. Norman sadly died of the sickness at just 2 years old. But Louise did survive, and she lived until 1919, when she's believed to have possibly died from complications due to syphilis at the age of 21.
Oh.
So I don't know,
That sounds
I think you can be treated for syphilis, but I don't think maybe you couldn't at that time. I'm like, how could she have been born with it and then died with it?
Right.
I don't know. But the death of Norman was a huge stressor on the family, and the already failing marriage just could not handle it. McLeod seemed to have become even colder and more abusive than ever before, and Margarita could not take it anymore. She wrote letters to her family back in the Netherlands asking for money so she could leave McLeod and return home, but they refused to help her. A woman seeking divorce was very scandalous at the time, so they suggested that she put in more effort to submit to and behave in obedience of her husband in order to repair the marriage.
Oh, yeah?
This abusive, alcoholic piece of shit.
Yeah, it sounds like she needs to get her shit together.
Yeah. She needs to repair the marriage, and he left the family on Java and whatever. Now, luckily for Margarita, McLeod wasn't just a bastard. He was an aging bastard, and he too was ready.
An old bastard.
He was an old, ugly, horrible bastard. And, as he was getting older and older, he was ready to return to the comforts of the Netherlands and wanted to leave the island life behind, which was what Margarita wanted as well. So in 1902, the family packed their things and they returned to Holland. Now, because filing for divorce was considered extremely disgraceful at the time, Margarita filed for legal separation at first, which was granted in 1903. But they did officially end the marriage in divorce in 1906, so 3 years later. She was awarded custody of the couple's daughter at first, but with no job, no reliable source of income, and no way to feed or clothe her daughter, let alone herself, she felt she had no choice but to return Louise to McLeod.
Oh, that's sad.
I know. And it just makes you, like, he was an alcoholic, he was abusive to her, and it makes you wonder, like, how was he treating that little girl?
Yeah.
So in 1903, after they officially separated, Margarita made the move to Paris, which was something that she had always dreamed of.
Good for her.
Right? I'm like, how do I do that? I got to figure that out. Maybe I got to get a divorce first. Now, she found a job performing in the circus, riding horses, and she would introduce herself to the audiences as Lady McLeod, which apparently, like, her ex-husband, or I guess kind of still technical husband at the time, like, him and his family hated that she was using their name, like, as her circus act. But struggling to get by, in addition to her act, she would also model for artists, just to make some extra money in her spare time. But what she really wanted to do was be like a stage performer and dancer. She wanted to be a star.
A star.
A star.
She wanted to be famous.
Now, she wasn't really trained in dance at all. She didn't dance when she was younger, but during her difficult time in Indonesia, Margarita found solace in studying the local culture. And she did join a local dance company there where she learned traditional Indonesian dancing. And seeing Paris as like the start of a new life where she could become whoever she wanted to be and, do whatever she wanted to do, she not only pursued this passion for dance, but she basically adopted an entire new persona based on like the Indonesian culture is kind of where she drew inspiration from. So she's known for like lying about her background a lot. Like there's and you can hear like she's telling some people she's from India. She's telling some people she's a Javanese princess and all of this stuff. And this is when she adopts the new name of Matahari, which means Eye of the Day in Malay.
Which is badass, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Like
Isn't that a
cool
sick name?
Yeah.
Matahari, the exotic dancer who becomes a spy. I love this story. I mean, it's sad, but okay. Anyway. Now, at the time, anything and everything deemed quote unquote Oriental was in fashion in Paris. Now, before you cancel me for saying that, I know that the term Oriental is incorrect and outdated and can be offensive, but I'm just using it because that's the term that they used at the time to describe anything that looked to Asia or even Egypt for artistic inspiration. So there's a lot of like in Paris, it was anything Oriental was really fashionable, like fashion and music and dancing and things like that drew inspiration. Was really like people were really interested in. Now, with her knowledge of the Indonesian Malay culture, her new name, and her provocative dancing, Matahari soon took the world by storm after she debuted her act at the Musée Guimet.
Ooh.
And there's a lot of like French names and German names in this, and just I'm doing my best out here, guys. I looked them up.
That was pretty nice.
Musée Guimet. Now,
She
Molly
tried
liked
too,
it.
Yeah.
Molly's like, I speak French. Now, so the Musée Guimet was the French National Museum of Asian Arts, and she debuted her act there on March 13th, 1905. Russell Howe described this performance in his book titled Matahari, The True Story. He wrote, quote, "A half life-size carving of Shiva with 4 arms was placed on the improvised stage with a bowl of burning oil at his feet. Matahari was dressed from the museum collection, as were 4 supporting dancers who, in the course of the rite, would vie for Shiva's attentions, but retire in humility as the god directed his invitation to Margarita Zell alone." End quote. Now, amidst thunderous applause, the audience erupted in fervor at Matahari's mesmerizing performance. Her debut marked an instant ascent to stardom, a rise that reverberated worldwide as she played a pivotal role in transcending the striptease into an art form. Courtship from prestigious European venues ensued, leading her triumphantly to stages in Spain, Monte Carlo, and Germany.
Ooh, fancy.
Now, with each tantalizing act, she artfully teased the boundaries of nudity, never fully baring herself to the audience. Her performance costumes were usually made up of elaborately jeweled breast cups. That's how they said it when I read it online.
So is she like the modern day or the old age burlesque, pretty much?
Kind of, yeah. So
Fun.
it is similar to burlesque because, she never fully shows anything. So like her costume's made of these jeweled breast cups, which is the funniest way to describe it. And then she would have like sheer fabric draped around her that would like hang underneath the breast cups that was like the dress. So you could see like her form through it, but you couldn't like see her body. And then she would slowly like take off like layers of the sheer fabric, but she was always wearing like a body stocking that matched her complexion. So you couldn't tell she was wearing a body stocking. But they made sure that like the stocking covered everything, so they never got like a little glance at her.
Anything,
yeah.
Or her
Never saw her downstairs. Now, the act was an overnight success, and it wasn't just like, I don't think the exotic dancing of it all was new. Or I guess the like sensual sexualized dancing wasn't new, or like the taking off the clothes. What she brought to her act that was so new was the like oriental, quote unquote, like inspiration. So she did these like Indonesian dances, and so they were just very like interesting. She talks about how she's trying to tell a story through it, and the costumes were very different from what anyone had seen before. Yes, she was really putting on a show, and it's just different from what everyone else was doing at the time. Thanks to her unique act, she pretty much became like the it girl of Paris. And she also became the long-term mistress of Émile Etienne Guimet.
Oh,
Thank you.
Wait, did he own the? Oh,
you got it. Yes, he did. He was the founder of the museum that she debuted her act at, and he was like a millionaire industrialist, like very. This is like one of her first lovers that was like very like wealthy and powerful. Oh, so we're gonna see a lot of wealthy and powerful lovers to come, but this is the first. Okay. Now, she really skillfully crafted like a new narrative of her whole life, like the story she would tell people about where she came from and who she was. And she kind of just made these grandiose like claims about herself and her act and her art and like what it's inspired by. And the details of her background were fluctuating all the time, just depending on who she's talking to. But she never mentioned that she was Dutch or from Holland or had these like humble beginnings. It was always like she was just like painting
She
this
was playing the
portrait of
character.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, she's playing a character, and I don't know if people knew or if they believed her, but I have a feeling that even if they did know, they were probably just like eating it up.
Oh yeah, they were like, I'm here for it.
She claimed to some people that she had been born in the mystical lands of India to a Brahmin family. And according to her narrative, her mother was a temple dancer who tragically perished during childbirth, leaving Matahari to be raised in a temple dedicated to the deity Shiva. What she was doing really was capitalizing on the European audience's unfamiliarity with the intricacies of Indian and Southeast Asian cultures. She effortlessly persuaded them to embrace like this fabricated heritage and fabricated image she was trying to portray, and really like base a lot of her stories and a lot of her dance and everything like that on the Hindu spirituality. So she would tell people, quote, "My dance is a sacred poem, each movement a word, every word underscored by music. The temple in which I dance, whether vague or meticulously recreated, is but a reflection of myself. For I am the temple. True temple dances, imbued with religious essence, elucidate the sacred text through gestures and poses," end quote. So she's very eloquent. Mm-hmm. She's educated.
She gets into character.
Yeah. And this makes her kind of like a double threat, because not only is she getting in with the wealthy and powerful because of this like sexual act that it's not really a sexual act. I don't know what you want to call it. Risque. That's the perfect word. Yeah. Because of this like risque act, but then she can kind of hold her own like in conversation with them and all of these things.
She can back it up, yeah.
Yeah. Now, regrettably, Matahari's illustrious career as a dancer proved to be very fleeting. Now, she had rocketed to stardom in the beginning of her 30s, so she was kind of, older for the entertainment industry. Mm-hmm. But as the years continued to pass, the natural effects of aging did begin to take their toll on her, and her allure to these audiences made up mostly of a lot of men began to diminish. Now, furthermore, what was once her unique and captivating performance had become commonplace, as imitations of her act popped up all across European stages. Many of these imitators were deemed to be younger, more beautiful, and crucially, more skilled dancers. Matahari's once innovative show had not only lost its novelty, but had been upstaged. By 1912, as Matahari approached 40 years old, her financial support increasingly came from her work as a courtesan rather than from her stage act. So I wasn't really sure what a courtesan was.
Sarah, you gonna tell us? Because I was like, I don't know.
So I just asked ChatGPT.
Nice.
Because that's what I'm obsessed with nowadays.
AI knows all.
And I'm just going to read you exactly what it told me. It said, "A courtesan is a historically high-class, sophisticated companion, often associated with providing intellectual conversation, companionship, and sometimes sexual services to wealthy and influential individuals."
Okay.
Courtesans were typically well-educated, refined, and skilled in various arts such as music, dance, and poetry. They operated within a social and often formalized system, sometimes with their own codes of conduct and hierarchy. While some courtesans engaged in sexual relationships with their patrons, their primary role was more akin to that of a mistress or a companion rather than a sex worker. Unquote.
So she was a, what do you call that nowadays?
Kind of like an escort.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so like I have a feeling, and I don't have like anything to, I get the impression that it's more like she's having relationships with these men.
Yeah.
But they're funding her lifestyle in a way that's not like, oh, we, but just bumped uglies, here's some money.
Yeah, like
it's more like they're like paying for where she lives. And
right.
yeah, it's more of like oh, you're my lover right now, so I'm going to take care of you. And so whoever was like...
It's like a sugar daddy.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's the way to put it. She's a sugar baby.
Yeah, she is
Matahari,
at 40.
Sugar
Damn.
baby.
Okay.
Good for her.
Yeah, right?
Now, not only was she a sugar baby, She was an icon in France at the time.
Iconic sugar baby.
And as a woman of status, the men she served as a courtesan were not just any old men. They were old men of influence. Government ministers, aristocrats, industrialists, the mega rich. It's even believed that she had relations in Germany with the Prince of Hanover, also known as the Kaiser's son-in-law, also known as the German Crown Prince.
Oh.
I was really I put that in there because I read all three of those and I thought it was three different people. It's one person. He just has a lot of names.
One person, three names.
Yes. And I aspire to be that rich and powerful one day.
Three names.
Three names.
Three names.
Trust fund. Prince. Three names. I don't know.
Rich as fuck.
Rich as fuck. So while being a courtesan didn't necessarily mean that she was like inherently a sex worker, it does seem that she was pretty much always intimate with these men. And based on her personal writings, she enjoyed it. Author Denise
Yes, she did.
Yeah, she did. And that's on, yeah, good for her. Now, author Denise No wrote that she, quote, she appears to have been quite the expert in the art of pleasuring men. Interestingly, even when she was making love, she did not strip completely naked. Her breast cups stayed in place. Always painfully self-conscious about the smallness of her bosom. Same. The imaginative woman came up with an explanation for this eccentricity that was designed to tug at her partner's heartstrings. She told them that in one of his fits of brutality, her former husband had bitten off both of her nipples.
Ow! But, like, if that was true, fuck. Ow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, what a story, though. Good for her.
Yeah.
She is crafty.
She's just a pathological liar.
Oh, for sure. But, like, she's so creative.
Yeah.
Like,
but, like,
my ex-husband bit off both my nipples, so I can't take my bra off for you. Sorry.
Here's the thing is, like, I don't like people who, like, lie and make up stories, but, like,
she's good at it, though.
If you do it this
like,
way, if it's like,
it's
I'm
fun.
a Javanese princess and my husband bit my nipples off, I'm like,
there's no
I love
fucking
it.
way they believe her, though.
Like,
you
I
just
love
kind
it.
of go along with it, like, oh, yeah?
I love it.
Good for you.
This is like one of the stories I was really excited to tell because I'm like, this one, I mean, it's still sad, but it happened so long ago. It's not like she has family around and stuff, and it's just like,
Dude, I'm so happy.
Really
I've never
fun.
heard the story before. She's a literal icon. She's that ITGIRL. You know them. You know what?
Oh,
the
yeah,
TikTok
yeah.
song?
It girl. Yeah, she was. She was the it girl of Paris.
IRL.
Now, even amidst her fame, wealth, and the adoration of affluent and influential admirers, there remained one longing she had that was unfulfilled, a connection with her daughter, Louise.
Aww.
Now, despite her endeavors over the years to reach out to Louise through letters, each attempt was thwarted by MacLeod, who callously...
Of course it was.
Yep. He just basically... He took all of the letters and would just return them unopened. So she knew, like, to make a point to
Like,
show
stop
Mata Hari that,
contacting
like,
her,
yeah, that the daughter didn't read
An
them.
a-hole.
Not one to let a man stop her from doing anything, Mata Hari, with the help of one of her loyal servants named Anna Lintians, devised a plan to kidnap her now 13-year-old daughter. Mata Hari entrusted Anna with a crucial mission to journey to Velp, Holland, where MacLeod and Louise lived, and kidnap Louise as she walked out of school at the end of the day. From there, they were to swiftly hail a taxi to Amsterdam and then catch a train bound for Paris. Now, with unwavering loyalty, Anna positioned herself at Louise's school, patiently awaiting her opportunity. However, her plans were dashed when MacLeod arrived unexpectedly to pick up his daughter, and Anna had to return to Paris without Mata Hari's daughter and basically just come back empty-handed, like I wasn't able to do it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously extremely disappointed, there wasn't much Mata Hari could do at this point except just try and continue to move forward with her life. Despite her fizzling career, she did attempt to keep her foot in the door in the entertainment business. And in May of 1914, she began a new residency at the Metropole Theater in Germany. This time, she was actually performing her own ballet that she had written called Chimera, which was about a priest falling in love with a goddess. But it seems that some patrons in the audience on opening night had some sticks just like real deep up their asses because they made formal complaints to the police about the act being indecent.
What?
Yep.
Grow up.
Grow up. And and these people just like, hold on, let me just tell you.
They were the Karens and Kyles of that era.
So these people make the complaints, and the police go to the show to see if it's indecent.
Right.
And specifically, it was an officer named Griebel. I don't know what his first name was. His last name was Griebel. So he went to see the act for himself. But unlike the other uptight ninny-wiggins that complained, he was enchanted by Mata Hari.
Yeah, he was.
Yep. And immediately asked her on a date. And the two became lovers. So
nice.
Shove that up your asses, you ninny-wiggins.
Right by Kyles and Karens.
Love it. So it's unclear how long the two continued to see one another, but some accounts actually suggest that Griebel's superior, which was police chief, I'm going to do my best, Tragat von Jago, and I'm just going to call him chief from now on, actually began a relationship. Sir. So this is his chief, Griebel's chief, ended up in a relationship with Mata Hari at some point. And we know this for sure.
So the chief and Griebel?
Yes. I don't know if at the same time. I don't know. But we know that eventually she moves on. She's moving up the police ladder.
Moving up the police chain.
Yeah, because
good for her, man.
On the evening of August 3rd, 1914, Mata Hari was actually at dinner with the chief in Germany. And while they were at dinner, Germany officially declared war on France.
Oh, shit.
Now, this is just one of many declarations of war made that year as the First World War erupted.
Damn.
Unfortunately for Mata Hari, because of the war, her show was abruptly canceled. And having resided in France for over a decade, she found herself categorized as a foreigner in Germany, leading to the freezing of all of her funds in German banks. So left with no alternatives, a penniless Mata Hari was forced to retreat to the Netherlands, where she worked as a model for about a year before returning to Paris in 1916. But, even though she was able to return to Paris, this was kind of, when I think... if she could speak from the grave right now, she would explain that this was one of the hardest years of her life because she's in Germany. She's used to this very glamorous lifestyle, and she has all of these connections in France and in Germany. All of her high class lovers are there, and all of her money is frozen. She has no money. When she goes to leave the country, they force her, she's not allowed to take out any of her jewels or her furs from the country. They make her leave them behind. And so she goes back to the Netherlands just basically starting from scratch.
The clothes on her back, literally.
Yes. And at this point now she's, I think she's about 40 years old at this point. So it's not as easy for her to then get back into the entertainment industry after all this time. Now, unbeknownst to her, at this time, the British Secret Service had actually been monitoring all of her activities for about a year, so since 1915. Now, her extensive network among Europe's elite and her rare fluency in German, French, English, and Dutch caused multiple European nations to be suspicious of her intentions and her power.
They're like, oh, this bitch is a spy.
It's just right now, you would see, it's like Kim Kardashian can go to any country and they're going to move mountains for her to get her there. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's not the same in that, she doesn't have all these, personal, or sexual relationships with all these people all over that are
or does she?
Political figures. Maybe she does. I don't know. But, so that just made her immediately, anyone that was just in the public eye like that, they were being watched during this war. So her presence in Germany at the outbreak of the war just deepened this shadow of suspicion upon her from Germany's enemies, which included France and Britain. So despite being on Britain's watch list, she was actually permitted to return to France in 1916. However, The Paris that greeted her upon her return bore very little resemblance to the city that she had come to know in her 10 years of living there. It was looking a lot different. So when she had lived in Paris before, it was during what is known as the Belle Epoque, which began after the end of the Franco-Prussian War in 1871. So it was a time period that was marked by peace, prosperity, optimism, enlightenment, and major scientific.
That's a word.
Scientific. Major scientific, cultural, and artistic innovation.
Oh, just put them together. You got it.
Scientifical art innovation.
I like that word better.
A scientifical art innovation. So it was a time when women were like greatly idealized by men. It was a time for fashion, dance, music, and art to flourish. What a time to be alive
for a woman.
Yeah, it was very glamorous. And actually, during this time period was when the Moulin Rouge cabaret was born and when the Eiffel Tower was built. So life was glamorous. They weren't at war, and it was especially like glamorous for the wealthy, obviously. Yeah. So when World War I began in 1914, all of that changed. Values really shifted. So the morality of men regained importance. So during the Belle Epoque, it was very much like men weren't off at war anymore. So they're really idealizing like women and femininity and sexuality.
Making babies.
But now that they're going back to war, and it's like you picture a soldier as being, perfect. And so people didn't want to behave in that way anymore. They didn't want to idealize like the sexual side of women. And obviously that's kind of bad for Mata Hari's business overall. Now, in addition to that, life in Paris no longer centered around, art and music and culture. I mean, millions of people were dying in the war. So that's what people were focusing on, as they should have been. Right. But it wasn't what Mata Hari, was used to. And now she's there and she's alone. And in this new era of war, the truth became more important than ever to people. And this was a value that didn't really suit Mata Hari's personality or her line of work. Like, people no longer loved. Yeah, people weren't loving on her lies anymore.
Yeah. They're like, all right, it's getting old.
Still,
it was cute when you were younger, but now it's just getting old.
Yeah, exactly. So still, one good thing did come from her return to Paris, as this is when she met the great love of her life, Vadim de Maslov. Vadim was an officer in the Tsar's army, and he was much younger than Mata Hari, young enough to be her son, many people note. Now, the exact circumstances of Mata Hari's initial encounter with Vadim remain shrouded in mystery. However, what is certain is that when she crossed paths with him, she had already grown weary of her life as a courtesan. The uncertainties brought about by the war made her profession increasingly precarious, and it just left her uncertain of where her next income would come from. A lot of these men that she was involved with that would really fund her lifestyle were, high-ranking officers in the military and things like that. So they're off at war. And with her dance career losing relevance and just like overall lacking a stable home or family, Mata Hari really felt the urge to like seek a new path forward, like a new lifestyle. And when she met Vadim, she felt like, okay, maybe it's time to kind of like settle down.
Yeah.
Now, on top of all of this happening, so, there's some bad, there's a little bit of good with Vadim. But it does just kind of go downhill from there, because rumors began to circulate in Paris that she might be a spy for the Germans.
Ooh.
Now, during this time, the leader of the French counter-espionage unit was named Georges Ledoux, and he decided to have her followed to see if she was meeting up with any of the other known German spies in France, but she never did.
Wouldn't it be crazy if because she was so popular, right, with guys? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be crazy if she actually did know one of the German spies and she didn't know that they were a German spy? You know what I'm saying? Like, she just knew them happenstance, and hey, we're besties. And then they're like, you're a spy. Yeah. How crazy would that be?
So not that exact situation happens, but she gets into a lot of similar, like, precarious positions she accidentally puts herself into.
She gets into those predicaments.
So in the summer of 1916, Mata Hari was planning on taking a trip to Western France. But in order to do that, she would first need to gain permission from the Ministry of War. Now, this was standard protocol at the time for anyone wanting to travel like within a certain distance of the front lines of the war. And it was the perfect opportunity for Ledoux to speak face to face with Mata Hari. He's kind of got this excuse to meet with her. Mm-hmm. Now, during their meeting, Ledoux asked her about the time she spent in Germany and about her connections there. I get the impression he was trying
vetting.
He's kind of like asking casually, but always wanted to spot an opportunity. Mata Hari recognized that her connections in Germany were of high interest to Ledoux. So she suggested that she could gather German intelligence for France in return for 1 million francs.
Oh, shit.
Which was...
She's like, hey, I'll be your spy, but you got to give me some money.
And
good for her.
That was an absurd amount of money at the time. Like, that was not like...
as it should be, though. Like, she's going to be a spy. She could be,
Yeah, but at even for a spy at the time.
Oh.
But then
it
it's also, you have
ridiculous.
To think, like, a spy who's not well known or whatever.
Yeah.
She's, like, you know...
She's got the upper hand.
Kind of famous and has all these connections already. So she's not, like, doing low-level work. So it was an absurd amount of money to ask for, but the plan that she kind of pitched to Ledoux at the time was equally absurd. And if it worked, it could change the course of the war entirely.
Damn.
So Mata Hari explained that she had an imminent trip to Belgium scheduled that was just upcoming. And at the time, Belgium was under German occupation. So it was there that she intended to rendezvous with her former lover, the Duke of Cumberland, also known as the Prince of Hanover, also known as the cousin of the German emperor.
Oh, shit.
Yep.
Three name is back.
Three name is back.
Baby.
She tells Ledoux that she believes she could convince the prince to break from Germany and join the English, which would spark a civil war in Germany.
Bold.
And obviously, Ledoux's like listening now. And now he's interested because it's going to be much harder for Germany to beat France in the war if they're also at war with themselves.
Yeah.
Now, with that...
Damn, she's smart.
Ledoux, yes, she is.
She's a smart girl.
Yes, she is. And Ledoux agrees to her proposal.
Of course he does.
Historians talk about this, and they're like, we have no idea why he would ever do that. That's the most insane plan ever.
Oh, really? This beautiful girl, this beautifully, intelligent girl is trying to tell you this plan, and you're like, oh, yeah, you're starting to make some sense now.
Yeah.
And by the way, she's also a master manipulator / liar. So.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Now, so at this point, as soon as he accepts her proposal, Mata Hari is officially a spy for the French. Like, on the books, like,
boom.
She is a French spy, okay?
Damn, add that to your resume.
I know,
Oof.
dude, like, exotic
her
dancer,
resume
French
has
spy
got to be
model.
Literally, her resume has got to be, like, floor length.
Exactly. So she tells Ledoux that her strategy to reach Belgium involved a very complex route by sea, just because obviously they're in a world war, so like there's travel restrictions of like you can't go from one country that is enemies with a different country. You can't go in between those two. So she was going to go from France to Spain to Portugal to Britain and then finally arrive in Belgium. However, her plans were abruptly halted when she was arrested at the port of Falmouth in Britain in November of 1916. Now, ironically, she was only arrested because the authorities at the port mistook her for another spy named Clara Benedicts, who was suspected of espionage for Germany.
Damn.
So they just thought she looked like this other German spy, and they're like, we got to arrest this German spy, and then it wasn't her. But, they had already been keeping an eye on her for over a year at this point.
Because they already thought
because
she was
they
a spy.
suspected
her,
actually her, of being a German spy. So eventually they realize this is not Clara Benedicts, this is Mata Hari, who we are also monitoring.
Yeah.
But they didn't
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence. I mean, like, what a happy accident for them. Otherwise, they would have just let her go because they didn't recognize her.
Meanwhile, she's on a world tour.
I know. So they didn't really know what to do with her because they didn't really have any solid evidence against her. And they were kind of questioning, you know, she was just kind of on their watch list. Like, they didn't know for sure if she was a spy. There was nothing that led them to believe that. But because she was so influential, they wanted to keep an eye on her.
They're like, all right, well, we got to keep eyes on this girlie.
In addition to this, like, they were questioning after they arrested her. They're like, would a German spy travel with 10 trunks of luggage across 5 countries?
No.
That's what they thought. That's what they thought. And I, like, iconic. I love that for her. Like, 10 trunks of luggage to go. I mean, she's probably traveling for months, but still, that's insane. So to them, it did seem rather conspicuous, but just to be safe, they decided to send her to Scotland Yard for interrogation. And during this interrogation, Mata Hari denied working for Germany and explained that she was actually working for the French and had been recruited by Ledoux himself.
Oh, shit.
In response, the British authorities contacted Ledoux to verify her story. However, they received a surprising reply from Ledoux, who revealed that he had only engaged her as a ruse and actually harbored suspicions that she might be a German operative.
Oh, my God.
Now,
fucking Ledoux.
So some historians believe this to be true, while others suggest that Ledoux's response could have stemmed from a fear of potential repercussions if Mata Hari were indeed found to be a German agent. And it was this, like, they think that it was this worry that prompted him to deny any, like, real involvement with her to Britain. Because if you remember, like, she gives him this really absurd plan that sounds pretty impossible. And so if she's already, like, getting stopped and getting caught, it kind of would make him look silly for, like, bringing her on for this, like, oh, you're gonna start a civil war in Germany.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, some people think, oh, okay, he really just did it because he thought she was a German spy, so he's trying to, like, get in with her.
Right.
But other people think that, like, he was just thinking, okay, on the off chance she's able to do this, I'll be, you know, in the history books.
Right.
And, but, you know, she hadn't done anything yet. So he's like, I'm going to throw her under the bus and save myself in this situation.
Yeah.
So with insufficient evidence to detain her further, Scotland Yard opted to force Mata Hari to return to Paris in 1917. So this was straight from Britain. She wasn't allowed to go to Belgium like she had planned to, you know, rendezvous with Mr. Three Names. She had to go straight back to Paris. So upon her return to Paris, she found herself under constant surveillance at this point with 2 inspectors.
They're really watching her.
Yep. 2 inspectors following her every move, everywhere she went. Damn. And she knew it. And she knew at this point that the situation was growing increasingly dire. They thought she was a German spy. They thought she was a traitor. And she knew that this wasn't just it wasn't just like a little bit of suspicion anymore. It was getting serious. And according to, like, one of the inspectors in a report that they had filed, one of the inspectors that was following her, they had actually, like, observed her dining alone at a restaurant, visibly distressed, and as she was eating by herself, she's just, like, bawling, crying.
Oh, that's so sad.
For a woman to do that in public at the time was like,
like, you don't show your emotions in public. Yeah.
So on top of being a prime target on the French counter-espionage department's wanted list, she also had not heard from Vadim in a long time, and this just added to her anguish. He was at war, so she doesn't know if he's okay or if he's, you know, just, like, ignoring her, where he is or anything. And so everything is kind of, like, culminating all at once. And in the early morning of February 13th, 1917, Mata Hari was finally arrested in her hotel room by French police. Now, from the hotel, she was immediately taken to the magistrate, Pierre Bouchardon.
Oh.
She told Bouchardon that she was an agent for the French Secret Services and that this whole thing was just a big misunderstanding. But Bouchardon wasn't buying it. He was very convinced that she was a double agent working for the Germans, and she had only agreed to work for the French to gather intelligence for Germany.
That's so scary because I feel like it's pretty well known that like spies are not treated very well when you are found out to be a spy. Like they're like, you know what I'm saying? Like they don't do very well for you.
Yep.
Like, if they know you're a spy.
And after exactly, because after she met with Bouchardon, she was taken to prison, and like her level of just like naivety became apparent because she gets to prison and she asks them if she can use the telephone and take a bath. Like, she thought she could just take a bath.
She's like, do you have a clawfoot tub in my room by chance?
Yeah.
In my cell?
Now, not only did she get neither of those things, but like you said, people who are, suspected traitors aren't treated very well in prison while they await trial. And she was not given toiletries or clothes for over 6 months. So she was wearing her same clothes. Like, she wasn't nude, but she sat in those same clothes without being washed for 6 months.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Dude, she's got to have like ringworm or some shit.
Yeah, it's not looking good.
Not looking good, bruv.
Bruv. Facing a lack of concrete evidence, Bouchardon and Ledoux resorted to trying to use like psychological pressure tactics during interrogations in their quest for a confession from Mata Hari. Now, despite their relentless efforts, she steadfastly maintained her composure, and she refused to crack under the strain, never yielding to their demands for a confession.
Good for her.
While in prison, she wrote letters to her powerful ex-lovers, begging them for help, but not a single one came to her rescue. She even wrote a letter to Bouchardon himself, pleading for his help, saying, quote, "Mon capitaine," which I love. I don't think I'm saying it right, but I like to think it sounds like "Mon capitaine."
That's like their...
Like something that's captain.
Like Pookie, but in their time.
Pookie.
You know how like that TikTok trend's going on?
Yeah.
Like, this is Pookie.
Hey,
and
Pookie.
She's wearing this.
Pookie, you have injured me spiritually and physically. I beg you to stop. If my request for clarification of the situation is the reason for this waiting, if that would offend the vanity of Captain Ledoux, then ask him to set me free. I shall never tell anybody what happened to me here in Paris. End quote.
Oh, and she wrote that on a letter. Don't they like intercept those? And, like,
well, this is no. She wrote that to Bouchardon, who's the magistrate on her case, who's like basically prosecuting her.
Okay.
So
she's like, I can't take any more of this. I will tell you everything. Just fucking let me go.
And she said in there, if that would offend the vanity of Captain Ledoux, like she's thinking, because she's in prison for almost or a little over 6 months before she goes to trial. And I think at this point she was thinking, well, they have nothing on me. Yeah. That's why they haven't taken me to trial yet, but they don't want to release me because it makes Ledoux kind of look like a fool because he was kind of in cahoots
like the
with her.
Whistleblower, yeah.
So she's like, Bouchardon, please help me. Like, I didn't do this, basically.
Okay.
Now, amidst the 17 interrogations that she was subjected to, the French gained their first real piece of evidence against her after she wrote that letter. And this came when they intercepted telegrams sent by the German military attaché in Madrid, Spain, that they believed were intended for Mata Hari.
Okay.
So in these coded messages, they obviously don't like address the intended recipient by name. They're using aliases, and these telegrams.
So they're just thinking like, oh, well, these are spy letters, so they must be for Mata Hari.
Well, we're gonna get there. So these telegrams refer to a spy that goes by the alias of H21. But even without her name, there are plenty of identifying factors in the telegrams.
Oh, so they do think it was for her.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
They detailed the exact sums of money that she had received from Germany, the banks where she had collected this money, and there are like bank records to corroborate
Corroborate. No,
Is that?
Yeah,
okay.
that's right. Yeah.
Oh, my brain.
It is one of those words that doesn't sound right when
Corroborate.
you say it. Corroborate.
I want to say coabulate.
Coabulate.
To coabulate.
You gotta coabulate those evidence.
So there are bank records to coabulate the telegrams. And, it matches the exact amounts that they're naming in these telegrams. Oof. But even worse, they mention the name of her loyal servant, Anna Lintians, by her full name.
Oh, what?
So they're calling her H21, but then they're just talking, and your
what
loyal servant.
What kind of spies are writing these fucking letters, dude? Well, they're not very discreet.
There are some theories about maybe why they weren't so discreet.
Yeah.
So during her later interrogations, Mata Hari told Bouchardon that she had an unwavering commitment to her French mission, even after she was being forced from Britain. So obviously, she's traveling by sea between all of these different countries to get back to France. And she was basically telling Bouchardon, look, even though I couldn't complete my original mission that I was supposed to go to Belgium and get Mr. Three Names to start a civil war, I didn't want to come back empty-handed. And so while she's traveling from Portugal to Spain to wherever, she had to stop in all those countries to get back to France. This is a really long journey, so she's taking some time in each area. And while she was in Madrid, she recognized a potential opportunity there. So she chose to prolong her stay for a few weeks before continuing her journey back to Paris. So while she was there, she decided to spend some time with one of her former lovers that she had heard, kind of heard around town that he was also there. Mm-hmm. And this was German military attaché Major Kalle. Now, according to her account, her interactions with Major Kalle were of a concerted effort to obtain intelligence. She just wanted to ensure that she wasn't going to return to France empty-handed. So this is a former lover. He's, he kind of high up in the military in Germany. She's like, okay, I got to get what I can out of this guy before I leave Madrid.
Right.
And per usual, she didn't realize at the time that the British Secret Service was still watching her, which I'm like, at this point, how do you not?
Yeah.
They've been watching you forever.
Why are you not knowing this?
They pushed you out of their country to return to France because they think you're a German spy, but you don't realize that they're probably watching you? I don't know. Or maybe she knew and she didn't care. I don't know. But they were keeping detailed reports of all of her activities in Madrid, which included multiple meetings with Major Kalle. So to Bouchardon, this was just more evidence against her. Now, during this time, while she's in Madrid, she did write letters to Ledoux telling him that she's meeting with Major Kalle and this is the information that she's gathered. And she's basically, writing in these letters, this is what I asked, this is what he told me. What else do you want to know? What should I try and find out? And that's why she's staying for weeks. But she never gets a response from Ledoux before she leaves. Now, Ledoux did receive these letters. So while she's being interrogated after her arrest, he can say, yeah, I got those letters. And for Mata Hari, she's like, look, guys, I wasn't, hanging out with, making sweet, sweet love with Major Kalle because I was working for him. I was trying to get information for you because you hired me to be a spy. But unbeknownst.
Please just tell them I am a spy for you and not for them.
Right. But once again, there is something unbeknownst to Mata Hari at the time. And that is the fact that the hotel she was staying in, which was the Ritz in Madrid, the entire hotel staff was made up of German secret agents.
Of fucking course it was.
So as soon as she handed a letter over to the postal staff at the hotel, it was read. And its contents were reported to Kalle before Ledoux even received any of the letters. So they're like...
So she's like, here, can you mail this? And they're like, sure thing. And then they go into the back room and literally just open it and read it real quick.
Yes.
But then do they end up sending it to him?
Yes, they do send it because, they don't
want to get caught.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's the job I want. Is to just
The
work at the
nosiest
Ritz.
bitch of the world.
Yes, to just work at the
Please.
Ritz, like this 5-star, like incredible, hotel in Madrid with all like the rich and famous people, and just
Secret
read all of the
Service
mail.
letter reader. Hell yeah.
Oh my God.
The fucking tea and drama in those letters, I bet you was so spicy.
Yeah, exactly. Now, some historians theorize that an enraged Kale got his revenge on Mata Hari for spying on him by sending telegrams to France with the intention of having them intercepted so she would be arrested.
Oh, shit.
One reason they believe this is because the telegrams that were intercepted were sent in a code that the Germans knew the French had already cracked at the time they were sent. So they knew it's sent
Some
in this whole
reverse
code, but they
psychology.
knew that the French could read them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so why would he send them in that code? Like they have tons of
So
codes
obvious.
that hadn't been cracked
They're
yet.
like, please catch me.
So it seemed like Kale's trying to send these telegrams so they would be intercepted, they would get read, and it would make Mata Hari look like a German spy and she would be arrested because she's making him look silly by having this
my God, I hate
ex-lover
this
that's
guy.
spying on him. So the discovery of the telegrams were enough to force Mata Hari she had to explain them. And because, he could be an ex-lover who's angry because she was spying, but also how did he have all this information about her money and whatever?
Right.
So on June 21st, 1917, she finally changed her story a bit. And she explained that during the year she had lived in the Netherlands after being forced from Berlin at the start of the war. So there was that year in between. She gets booted out of Germany at the start of the war. She lived in the Netherlands for a year. And then she went back to Paris. And that was like after the war began. So during that year in the Netherlands, she met a German man named Karl Hubert Kramer. Now, while she believed him to be the German consul in Amsterdam at first, he was actually the head of the German Secret Service in Amsterdam. So another thing that's unbeknownst to Mata Hari at the time, she had no idea that this guy's in the Secret Service.
So was she trying to tell them like, hey, I'm like working for you guys. I'm not a spy for somebody else.
She's trying to, yes,
but
because
they don't believe her.
She's on trial, or she's going to be on trial in France, and they're accusing her of spying on France for Germany.
Okay.
And they think her like allegiance lies with Germany.
Okay.
And so she's saying, no,
It's the other way
I'm spying
around.
for France.
Right.
Because obviously she's not going to be, that was her job there. She's not going to be, tried and convicted for being a spy if she's spying for France. But it's like they're getting these telegrams that are showing her there's some sort of relationship between her and Germany. So they're like, you got to explain what's up. She tells them while she was back in the Netherlands, she meets this guy. She thought he was the German consul in Amsterdam. But really, she finds out later that he was the head of the German Secret Service there. Now, when Kramer met Mata Hari, he already knew who she was. He knew that she was a woman of power and influence. So he made a point of kind of just like observing her around town. What he observed was that she was bored to death in Holland and desperately wanted to return to Paris. So he kind of sees this as an opportunity. She looks miserable. She wants to go back to Paris. What can I get out of this situation if I help her do that? So he knew that she would never be able to return to Paris because all of her finances were frozen in Germany still. And seeing this as an opportunity, he decides to offer her 20,000 francs to return to Paris and work as a German spy. And she admits to Bouchardon that she accepted his offer.
Oh my God.
She explains that she felt she was owed the money by Germany, the very country which froze her finances and forced her to leave all of her jewelry and expensive furs behind when she left. Moreover, Germany's actions had effectively forced her back to Holland, a place that was devoid of meaningful employment, a kind of a reminder that she didn't have her family, didn't have her daughter, and there were really no promising prospects for her there.
Yeah.
So
this actually happened, or is she just saying this like to try to get out of it?
This happened.
Oh shit.
This happened. So she's saying, look, I did accept this money with the intention of returning to France and getting what I'm owed from Germany, but I never spied for Germany.
I was never gonna give them any information.
Right. So she said she never had any intent of passing intelligence to Germany. And to this day, actually, there is no hard evidence that she ever did pass like meaningful intelligence to the Germans.
Right.
She just wanted to take the money that she felt she was owed by Germany. And she felt like she kind of wanted revenge. She wanted some sort of reparation from the country that had caused her so much hardship. And she emphasized that, her allegiance was with France and she never betrayed her allegiance to France.
Right.
Now, before this admission, it had been clear to Bouchardon that Mata Hari was a double agent, but it was still plausible at the time that she was loyal to France and had only convened with Germany in trying to gain intelligence to report back to France.
Right.
But as soon as she admits to taking this money from Kramer,
you're like, oh, we told you.
Right.
We knew it.
Yep. Exactly, because it kind of seals her fate because...
And meanwhile, she's just trying to get out of it. She's like, look, maybe this does look sus because I admit I did take some money from them, but, I was never going to give them any information. I just wanted them to hurt a little bit so I can get this money, paid back to me.
Exactly. So she, at this point, it's like they see this
she's
as...
neck deep in problems.
Right. They see this as concrete evidence that she did collude with Germany prior to any involvement with France or Ledoux. So, this is evidence that she was working for Germany before Ledoux asked her to be a spy for France. Because this is before she came back to France.
Oh.
So
it doesn't even matter that she is a spy.
Exactly, because she took the money from Kramer saying she would spy for Germany. Whether or not she really intended to, we don't know.
Yeah.
But she took that money first. Then she returned to Paris, and then Ledoux asked her to spy for France. So it's like, okay, they're kind of looking at it, whoever you were working for first.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. So
and they're already looking for a confession from her. They're trying to nail her, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And they're getting
That's
exactly...
all they needed, yeah.
They're getting exactly what they wanted. And with this revelation, any lingering doubts that they had about her allegiance were completely dispelled. Now, again, I want to reiterate that as far as we know, none of the information she ever delivered was of any use to Germany or France. She never delivered any meaningful...
what do you call that? Not like an acolyte, but like a socialite. She was a socialite.
Right.
What kind of... who didn't really... all she cared about was being a socialite. She didn't care about being a spy.
Exactly.
She wanted the money.
But whatever her intentions were, it didn't really matter to them. They had enough to prosecute her under French law, and with suspicion on her from not one, not two, but three major players in the first ever World War, the mere uncertainty surrounding Mata Hari's allegiance was deemed sufficient enough to condemn her. Because Britain is looking at her, because Britain and France are allies against the Germans. So, but now Germany is even looking at her because they're like, why are you colluding? Because her letters that were getting read at the hotel shows that she was spying for the Germans.
Yep.
So, or for France, I mean. Oof. So, the trial...
oh my goodness.
The trial of Mata Hari began on July 14th, 1917, and just 2 days later, she was unanimously sentenced to death by firing squad.
Damn!
Yeah, that's a
rough way to go. Oh my God!
Fun fact, or not so fun fact, I guess, in Indonesia, drugs, just like weed and mushrooms and stuff like that, and obviously anything worse than that, it's if you get arrested for like possessing drugs, you can it's punishable by death. And one of the ways that they'll kill you is death by firing squad.
Damn.
When I did my like volunteer program thing there,
Yeah.
we were like staying in, this homestay or whatever with all the other volunteers. And I had to sign this form, like a waiver saying, I understand these things. And it was like I can't be out after this time at night by myself and whatever. And I understand that if I am doing drugs in Indonesia and I get caught, I could be killed by death by firing squad or whatever. And I was
just like one of
I'm
those
like
waivers.
19. I'm like,
right.
Okay, sweet.
Check. Okay, agree to the terms.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
That's wild.
So she is sentenced to death by firing squad. And on the day of her execution, October 15th, 1917, she defiantly rejected the customary blindfold offered to the condemned as a gesture of mercy and reportedly faced death with her head held high. Of death, Mata Hari once...
Queen.
Yeah. For real. Of death, Mata Hari once wrote, quote, "Death is nothing, nor life either, for that matter. To die, to sleep, to pass into nothingness, what does it matter? Everything is an illusion," unquote. Isn't that kind of sad?
An icon. I just like can't get over it. I feel so bad for her. Like that, she just had the shittiest of luck.
Just wait. It doesn't even end with her death.
Oh
the
my
shitty
God,
luck.
it never does.
So her body was never claimed by anyone in her family. Instead, it was reportedly used for medical studies. Well, from the neck down, at least. Her head, however, was removed, embalmed, and donated to the Museum of Anatomy in Paris.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Isn't that wild? And I'm like, I wish I would have known about this museum while I was there. They just have like a bunch of embalmed heads. Like, what the hell?
Is that still like a thing?
Well,
like, I'm not trying to go there.
Well,
I don't want to see a bunch of embalmed heads. No, thank you.
So this is where it gets even. Do you think it can get crazier? Because it does.
I mean, embalmed heads in a museum, that's pretty nuts. I didn't know that.
In 2000, while taking inventory of the thousands of preserved heads kept at the museum, it was discovered that Mata Hari's head was missing.
Oh my God, somebody stole her head?
Dude.
What the fuck?
Wait.
Dude, this is a video game right
I'm
now.
not done.
This is a
I'm
video
not
game.
done. It's unclear when the head went missing, but it's believed that it could have been lost or stolen as early as 1954 when the museum was relocated.
What the fuck? How do you just lose a head?
An embalmed head. Okay, so let's go back to the early 1900s. We got to forget about the head, even though that is like...
Oh my God, I can't even get over that.
So after Mata Hari's execution, the war continued for more than another year and eventually ended on November 11th, 1918. Now, in the 1930s, a German senior counterintelligence officer named Major Gemp allegedly compiled reports from the First World War, some of which mentioned H-21, Mata Hari's alias. Mm-hmm. In these reports, it's recorded that in the fall of 1915, which is the same year that Mata Hari had met Kramer, H-21 was sent to both Cologne and Frankfurt, Germany, where she was trained in espionage by German counterintelligence. But was this true, or was this just a story cooked up by the Germans after her death because she was so famous? Right. They wanted to say, oh yeah, she was with us all the time.
Yeah.
So there are no other records or evidence to prove that Mata Hari ever returned to Germany after the start of the war or that she was ever trained in espionage. However, there was a gap in her recorded schedule of where we know she was that fall. So it lines up with the time that they're saying. So it is possible. Yeah. Now, despite being immortalized as the epitome of the femme fatale and arguably the most notorious female spy in history, the real story of Mata Hari reveals a stark truth. Her espionage skills were far from exceptional. This is evident in the numerous mistakes that she makes. And, how many times did I say unbeknownst to her, little did she know, whatever.
She was smart, but not like super spy smart. Like, geez.
And all of these mistakes, they led to her own demise. So all I'm saying is, if she was indeed trained in espionage by the Germans, they did a real shit job.
Right?
They did a fucking horrible job.
Do better.
She's kind of immortalized as like the ultimate female spy. Like, anyone who recognizes her name or the story, like, can you name another female spy?
No.
Right. It's like Mata Hari is it, but like she was bad at it if she was really trying to spy.
Yeah.
So the enigma that surrounded her espionage activities continues to fuel debate among historians and scholars. Some argue that she did have true intentions of spying, but she was just so inept at espionage that we can't even tell which side she was trying to spy for.
Because she wasn't trying. I think that was her problem.
That's
she
never
think.
should
have agreed to be a spy in the first place.
That's
and
what I think.
the only reason she did was because of the money. And then she found out, like, oh shit, like, this is real life. Like,
yes,
spy shit is no joke. Like,
exactly.
Like,
that's basically, so like the people on the historians on the other side basically contend exactly what you're saying. They think that Mata Hari's motivations were just driven by personal gain and trying to like maintain her lavish lifestyle that she had gotten used to in a different way, because the war ruined like her, life as a courtesan wasn't working out anymore.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, how else can I do this? And then she's being approached, by these government officials.
Fuck that guy. I don't know if it would have made a difference if he actually like told the truth in the beginning, but like he was a spy, so probably not. But what was his name?
Ledoux?
Like, yes.
Yeah.
He could have solved a lot of shit.
Yeah.
By just saying, yep, she was a spy for France.
What makes me, and I'm like, did they really think she was a spy, or did they just think like...
that's my thing too, is like, did they actually think she was a spy, or were they just trying to prove that she was because she was so popular and like so well known?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
We got this girl that she's surprised, she's a spy.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm kind of on the side of the historians that think she just wanted money and she didn't really have any sincere allegiance like to either country. She just was doing what was best for her in that moment.
Yeah.
And now, like, it is plausible, obviously, that she saw espionage as simply a means to an end and never really thought about what the end would come to.
Yeah.
So leveraging her connections and allure, just getting that financial support from both sides without providing any substantial intelligence.
That was like her dream job. Like,
it's like the most likely, because like I said, she never provided any intelligence that was ever helpful to either side. But when it comes to her loyalty to France, Mata Hari is often quoted with a memorable line, because she claims this whole time, she's like, she says, I'm loyal to France.
Yeah,
I'm loyal to France. Now, maybe it's just because France was prosecuting her. But she has this really great like quote that you'll see everywhere. But I will say its authenticity is highly debated. But it's, quote, a harlot, perhaps, but a traitor, never.
Oh.
Isn't that good? I love that. I was like, okay,
dude, I need to find a movie about this, because this would be a bomb-ass movie.
I know, we should watch it. I had heard of this case years ago. I read this book. It's called The Spy by Paulo Coelho.
Oh, I think I've seen. I've never.
I have it. You could borrow it. It's so good. So it's like historical fiction. It's based off this, but like he's kind of saying, oh, and she thought that, obviously we don't know. But I've always been upset because I had never heard of her before I read that book.
Yeah.
And when I realized it was a true story, I'm like, I got obsessed with it. And I was like watching all these documentaries. This was years ago. So when we started doing the podcast, I want to do some historical stuff that's like, I just feel like it's a little bit lighter and more fun.
Yeah.
Because we can crack jokes.
I've heard of her, but I never knew like she was a spy. I never knew any of that.
Right.
She's famous.
And it is. It's just interesting and kind of fun. And they're just like more like crazy tales.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to do Mata Hari first, like, because I love her. And we were just talking to my brother about building the website, which we're going to put pictures for each episode. But Emily, wait till you see these like pictures of her and her like outfits
I'm
and
so
everything.
excited.
It's amazing.
Her little beaded breast cups.
Yeah. Bejeweled breast cups. That should be our first merch, is just like bejeweled breast cups on a
Dude,
sweatshirt.
hell yeah, that'd be fun.
That would be dope. So anyway, back to the story, because we're almost done. I got 2 more sentences. So the true motivations behind Mata Hari's espionage career may forever remain shrouded in mystery. However, what is clear is that Mata Hari had an unyielding desire to be a star, to etch her name into history and leave her mark on the world. Sadly, it seems that it was her own tragic demise that cemented the legacy she perpetually sought throughout her life.
Well, wow, damn.
The whole time I was saying that, I was like, don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. You're doing so good.
Forever.
Yeah, so just so all of our 5 billion listeners we already have on like episode 6 know, all I do is just stumble over my words this whole time. And then I spend hours editing it, just cutting out, because I'm like, so I have to cut out those.
You'll
like
be a public
6
speaker
Fs.
in no time.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm getting better. Anyway, but yeah, it's sad. It's like all she wanted was to like live this glamorous life and be a star and be iconic and be remembered.
Well, I mean, she did do that.
She did do that.
The end of it was not great for her, you know?
Yeah.
But here we are talking about her.
Yeah.
100 years later.
Isn't the thing about her head so crazy? Because I didn't know that. I
forgot about that. I'm like, how do you just lose a head? And also, my brain is just like, how do you transport a head? Well, because do they put it in this like acrylic box, like a baseball, you put on display?
Well, my first question is like, they said they embalmed it. I'm like, yeah, but embalming doesn't like preserve it completely, right? So I went down a rabbit hole on like Google probably has flagged me. I'm like Googling embalmed. I was literally Googling embalmed heads. Don't do it. You don't want to see.
You're gonna have spies watching
because it's not like they're frozen in a piece of ice and it just looks like a head. Like it looks like leather and
body,
like
yeah.
It looks like a skull with like leather wrapped around it, and it's gnarly. It's gnarly.
No thanks.
But yeah, that is the crazy life and death of Mata Hari.
Whew.
My girl.
That was a good one.
Isn't that good?
Yeah,
I was really excited for this one.
I was excited.
All right.
I was excited once again.
So, like I said, my brother is working on it's probably already up. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Like, search, follow, share, all the above.
It's going to be atrialbypodcast.com. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at A Trial by Podcast. The A is very important. It's not Trial by Podcast. It's A Trial by Podcast. And they've probably been up for a while. I know the first like 5 or so episodes, I'm like, we're going to have a Facebook page soon, whatever. And I'm like, why did I say that? Because now they're all done and we haven't released any episodes yet because we're trying to like be ahead of schedule.
Hey,
but
it's a trial, okay?
Yeah. I love it. So I just had the best idea. I was just thinking we have to think of our own thing for how we finish episodes. And I'm like, we should get a gavel. Oh, wait, I know how we finish,
add
Emily.
The sound.
Emily, no. I'll add the sound after we say this, but
okay.
I'm gonna say, and court is adjourned.
Nice.
We're gonna work out. We're gonna finesse it. I feel like we got to do
it.
something where it's like both of us, but
and
court is adjourned. I'm gonna chat you.
I look where you're going with that.
Yeah, we're on the right track. Next time, you guys, we're gonna blow your fucking minds when we
get ready to get wrecked.
Maybe we just have Emily do the intro and outro like WWE style. And court is adjourned.
And in the corner, I was gonna be like, weighing in at 120 pounds, Molly Williams.
I'm definitely going to have to turn your volume down on that so it doesn't like break people's ears. All right, we did it. Court is adjourned.
Come at your ear holes. Dun dun.
Thanks for letting us invade your ear holes.
Like, thanks for letting us get right in there, up in those crevices.
We love getting right up in those ear holes, talking true crime.
Yeah, I'm not trying to come out all sticky with earwax, so
yeah.
clean your ears.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Okay, adjourned.
Bye.